Hey, welcome back. Today's video is going to be about my attempt at doing a ride 1K in a day. I started out on Tuesday, August 17th at 8:02 p.m. Pacific time on my quest to complete this ride on my way to Indian Bike Week in Wisconsin. I was going to stop at North Platte, Nebraska on Wednesday night. That was my goal. That's where I was headed. And as I made it to my first gas stop in Cedar City, the weather had started to change. It was starting to get windy. There was lightning all around. I'm like, well, I'm probably going to get some rain soon. So I put on my rain gear, and I was hoping I wasn't going to get any rain. But as I was headed up I-15 towards Salt Lake, the lightning show around me just continued, and it was just going off. And then it was about 100 miles from Spanish Fork, Utah, and it started to sprinkle. I'm like, all right. So I continued my way. And this was around 2 a.m. by then. And the closer I got to Spanish Fork, the more the rain started to intensify. It wasn't really huge drops, and it wasn't super hard. It was just constant. To where, I couldn't see in front of me. I was trying to wipe my visor off. Couldn't really see the lines in the road. I'm doing 45 with my flashers on, and it's just getting really, really sketchy. I pulled off at the next off-ramp that I found that had an overpass. So I sat under the overpass for a few minutes trying to figure out what my next move was going to be. And as I was sitting there, I see down the road about half a mile is a gas station. You can tell the lights are on at the pumps and everything. So I'm like, cool, I'll go down there. Maybe warm up inside the gas station. Well, I forgot that, not every place is like Las Vegas, Nevada, and open 24 hours a day. The pumps were open, but the inside was not. And it didn't open till about, I think it said 5 o'clock. And it's now around 2:30, 3 o'clock. So I'm like, what am I going to do now? I gas on my bike, sitting there, waiting for the rain to stop. It doesn't seem like it's going to stop. And I'm like, well, I'll just try to get down the road, see if I can get down farther. Maybe the rain's not as bad down there. So I get on my bike, I leave. I go maybe 5 miles down the road. Then it's the same. Can't really see. Doing 45 with my flashers on. Whole 9 yards. So I get off the next gas station I saw. I'm waiting there. Now this was a bigger gas station. More lights, better awning. But I walked up towards the door to see what time they opened. They didn't open until 7 o'clock in the morning. And as I was up by the door, there's this guy kind of sleeping by the door. Wasn't sure what was going on. So I quietly walked back to my bike. And, hung out there for a little bit. And then the guy kept making noises and just was like tripping me out. I was getting a little nervous. So I'm like, well, I'll try see how far I can get now. Get on the bike again. Same kind of thing with the rain. So then I see a Maverick station. I'm like, oh, they're usually open. Pull into there, they were open. So, I was able to go inside, dry off, go to the bathroom, got some actual food for breakfast there. And while I was in there hanging out, I asked the guy working there, I'm like, what time does the sun usually come up? He's like, 7 o'clock. By this time, it was around 5:30, I think. I was like, oh, I can't wait that long for the sun to come up. Because, if the sun's up, it's a little better to ride in the rain. It still sucks, but it's a little better. So then I left Maverick. And while I was at the Maverick, I was like, this was about 9 hours into the ride. And I still had about 700 miles to go from where I was. And according to like Google and everything, it was still about a 12-hour drive. And that's if you have no problems. That doesn't take into account for gas stops, pee breaks, whatever. So then I rode for about 3 more hours after leaving that Maverick station till I got to Deschutes, Utah. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced. I'm sure somebody will correct me, maybe. My ride command took me through Provo Canyon, which is a beautiful ride when it's not raining. When it's raining, it kind of sucks. It's super curvy, and it was windy and rainy. Again, 45 miles an hour with my hazards on. Hopefully nobody run me over. And then when I got to Deschutes, the clouds were starting to break up. The sun was starting to come out. I pulled in the gas station, took off my rain gear, went to the bathroom, got a drink and a snack, and then I called my wife and my mom to let them both know why I was still not that far through Utah. So I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do. I'm like, well, I still have time that I can make this if nothing else happens. So then I got back on the bike, rode for another hour to Vernal, Utah, gassed on my bike, and then headed north towards Wyoming. But by the time I got to Vernal, my boots were dry, my socks were dry, my gloves were dry. The sun was out, my attitude was changing. This is starting to become a better ride. I was having a good time again. And then heading towards Wyoming, I got to ride by Flaming Gorge Reservoir, which is someplace I've always wanted to visit. So that was pretty cool to see. And then as you leave Flaming Gorge and head into Wyoming, the scenery just started to change. The roads got really fun. Then I hit I-80 and headed east. And I was putting the hammer down to try to make up as much time as I could because I still had mileage to go. And I was running out of time for this ride. And everything was good. Once I hit Cheyenne, Wyoming, the sun was still shining. I still had about 3 hours left to go a little over 100 miles so that I could make my 1,000-mile challenge. And I was 200 miles from where I had planned to stay for the night. Now, this was about 6 o'clock Central Time. Mountain Time. Where I was going with Central Time. So I really only had 2 hours to get there because the 100 miles would have put me into Nebraska. And then about 30 miles outside of Cheyenne, it all changed again. I ran into another storm cell. I couldn't see out my visor. I couldn't see the lines on the road due to water on the road. But you know what? That didn't stop the semi-trucks from flying by me at what seemed like 90 miles an hour as I was going 45 again with my flashers on. So I got off at the first exit I could, pulled into a gas station, called my wife to let her know that I was turning back and headed back to Cheyenne for the night. I didn't really want to risk my life or my bike just to get a patch and a certificate. So that's where I ended up, was staying the night in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Now, here's a tip for you. If you're in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and you're going to stay the night, or you even want to go get a drink, that's if you drink, be sure to try to find out where you're at, because not every convenience store, truck stop, whatever, sells alcohol. There's only like 17 liquor licenses in the whole town. And there was one that was like 2 miles from my hotel. The one across the street, they did not serve alcohol. And I just did not feel like getting on my bike and driving 2 more miles just to get a beer. So I went back to the truck stop, got some truck stop pizza and some Starbursts, and called it a night. I then had to go in and, change my reservations from where I was going to stay Wednesday night because I didn't make it there. And I was going to go past there on Thursday, and I had planned to be in Nebraska on Thursday, so I had to change that reservation as well. But all in all, it was a good attempt. I learned a lot. One of the things I learned is that if you're going to do one of these rides, make sure you double check the weather and make sure you have an alternate route planned out just in case you run into weather or traffic, road construction or whatever. But like, for example, the ride command GPS wanted to take me on the I-70 all through Colorado and through Denver and into Nebraska. I didn't want to go that way because I've been that way a few times and I wanted to do something different. You know, this was a whole different ride, so I wanted to do something different. Well, the one thing I learned, had I went that way, I wouldn't have ran into rain because there was no rain that whole route. That's what it is. But as far as doing the ride, doing the 1K in a day, I know that I can do it physically and mentally as long as, nothing else happens like weather or, whatever. And I know I can make it on another trip. And I actually have that trip planned out already. I'm going to be going to Moyers, Oklahoma for Adam Sandoval's Stubborn American Party at the K River Campground, September 30th through October 3rd. So if you're there, look me up. Let's meet up. And like always, I appreciate you guys following me, liking my videos, sharing them, everything. So just like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. And again, thank you very much.